Hi everyone, this is Payana and welcome to my channel. So I haven't been very productive lately because I've been ridiculously busy, and I made the Wardstone Chronicles video about a week ago and it's taken me this long to put it online because I have been ridiculously busy. I have a new job, hopefully. I have just so much stuff going on in my life right now. It's all really rushed. So yeah, busy. And yeah, so I've been just getting behind in my video scheduling. I have 3 videos to film today. I have a day off. It's bank holiday today, so hopefully I'm gonna get it all done. So here goes. So I'm starting this off with the 4th book in the Temeraire series, Empire of Ivory. So Lawrence and Temeraire have finally got back to the UK after 2 books of being away travelling. So they went to China, then they came back via Turkey and all the way up through Europe and all the battling going on, because this is the Napoleonic Wars with dragons. I have the videos on the first 3 books in the series if you want to catch up. So once they get back to the UK, they're not allowed to go to any of the dragon coverts. They're not allowed to go and see any of their friends, and not really told why, until they discover that the dragons have been taken with this really severe disease. And it had been kind of hinted at Lawrence whilst they were part way into their travels to China in book 2. And Temeraire had also been sick, only they just thought it was a cold, and when they got to Cape Town he was given a lot of food because the Chinese chef that was on the ship, the dragon chef, was cooking all kinds of food for him, and so he was alright after that. And they do end up having contact with one of the sick dragons, and one of them actually sneezes in Temeraire's face, but Temeraire doesn't get sick. So at this point they start thinking, well, if he's immune, we need to find out what triggered that immunity. And because like South Africa was the place he seemed to start getting better, they travel all the way back to South Africa to try and find the cure. So they don't stay in the UK for very long. They have to scuttle off again back to South Africa with a bunch of other sick dragons, which are all like Temeraire's friends, and get to find the cure. And so they have a Chinese chef with them who travel with them back from China, a dragon chef called Gongsu, and he starts just going crazy and cooking any kind of ingredient he can find. But the one thing that they really kind of took from the first journey when they got to South Africa, Temeraire was fed this massive, great, big, stinky mushroom that everyone on board was just so angry at the Chinese chef because it like stunk up the whole ship. But Temeraire loved it, and that was to them the triggering point when he started to get better. So they try and find this huge stinky mushroom somewhere in the forest, but it's really hard to get hold of. And when they do finally get hold of one, they find out that that's it, that's what works. They feed it to one of the sick dragons and the dragon recovers. So now it becomes a race to find these mushrooms. So they're asking all the local people and trying to get hold of them. They get hold of 2 boys from a local tribe who help them find these mushrooms. Only to them, these mushrooms aren't a good thing because they make the cows sick, and they're all about keeping their herd safe. So in the end they find some mushrooms in a cave, and they're really happy, start putting them on the dragons and taking them back, shipping them back to the UK. Only then they realise that these mushrooms are actually being farmed, and the owners of the mushrooms turn up with one insanely massive dragon who takes everyone hostage. And they get ferried across the whole of Africa And so then we get to see the African dragons. So we've had the dragons in the UK, the dragons in China, the dragons in the Middle East, the dragons in Turkey, some of the dragons in Europe, and now we've got the African dragons. And the African dragons are really interesting because Naomi Novik just has this insane imagination, and what I love so much about this series is all the ways like the dragons are in all the different countries and how it works, because this is alternative history. And so the dragons are kind of like wise people. They are supposed to be reincarnations, and they're called ancestor dragons. And they kind of look after the people. They're like they're almost like living gods and reincarnations of like leaders or kings and important people. And they have these eggs which they treat, you know, like royalty, and they talk to them like the dragon inside the egg will be the reincarnation of another dragon or another person. And so they tell the egg, oh, this is what you did when you were alive. So these dragons are born with the notion of what they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to do. And obviously the African people aren't happy because Lawrence and his people have been stealing their mushrooms. So yeah, conflict occurs. Temeraire is away when Lawrence and the rest of the crew get captured by the people and the dragons. So they get taken just hundreds of miles away to this incredible city, which is in the side of like a cliff that they've hollowed out these caves and made their homes in them. And Temeraire has to travel across the whole of Africa almost to try and find them. And so once again we have the life of a new nation and how they look after their dragons and sort out their dragons. And the dragons are kings. They have this dragon king who is in fact female, so it's a bit confusing for them. But this is like the high dragon of all this region who looks after all the people. And this is a time when slavery was still going on, was still going strong. And Lawrence and Temeraire, like, they come across slavery in book 2, I think, when they actually get down to the Cape. And Temeraire is just really appalled by it. And Lawrence, like, his family belong to a political front who are trying to get slavery abolished, only... You know, it's very, you know, this generates a lot of money, so no one really wants it going away. But the dragons here, the ancestor dragons, because it's their job to look after everyone, obviously they're very angry with people just turning up and stealing their populations and their children, that they're supposed to look after them. And this generates a war, which I thought was brilliant, because the dragons attack the Cape where they know there are slaves, and they free the slaves, and they do this all across like the African coast. And while Lawrence and the others manage to escape when Temeraire finds them, every kind of port they go to up the coast of Africa has been just ransacked by the dragons, and the slaves have been freed. And that's how slavery ends. That's how the slave trade ends in Africa. In this series, the dragons step in and say, that's it, we've had enough of this. When they finally get back to the UK at the end of this book, obviously they're kind of very well received because they've brought the cure with them, so all the dragons can get back to fighting the war. This was a big problem. Obviously there's Napoleon trying to invade Britain with his dragons, and they don't have any dragons to fight them. And even in book 3, at the end, when they're in Prussia fighting Napoleon's armies, they were waiting for the British dragons to come. They asked for 20 dragons, only the dragons never came, and now we know why, because they're all sick. And then the end's really dark, because these books get dark. It ends with a French dragon being infected with the disease and being sent back to France to provoke this kind of bacteriological warfare by making all the French dragons sick with this disease. this tactic doesn't sit well with Lawrence or Temeraire, especially Temeraire, who thinks that it's really unfair to fight an enemy in this way. His idea of war is to fight the enemy on equal grounds in battle and not go sneakily around infecting them with a deadly disease, especially as the consequences of this aren't quite astronomical because the UK is an island, so there wasn't much contact at this point between the sick dragons who were all kept in quarantine and the dragons in the rest of the world. But if France becomes infected, then the whole rest of the world could very quickly become infected. And Lawrence and Temeraire are afraid of this, that the sickness will spread all over the world and destroy dragonkind. And Temeraire is worried about his own family back in China. So Temeraire says to Lawrence, look, I'm going to take them the cure. That's it. That's the way it is. No argument there. And Lawrence doesn't really have a lot of choice but to go along with it. He also believes that it's the right thing to do. So he steals the cure, takes it to France, and gives it to Napoleon, which is, of course, an act of treason that he will have to pay for later. So I am still completely obsessed with this series. I honestly haven't been this obsessed with a book series for a long time, especially as when I read book series, I can't remember if I've said this before, but normally I'll read one book, and this is how it went when I was reading The Mortal Instruments. I'll read one book and then I'll read a few other books before I'll read book 2. But with this series, it's just so hard to do that. I try and read other books in between. But I can never read more than one before my brain starts screaming, read the next book in the Temeraire series. I've just finished book 5. That's all I did this weekend. I spent my whole weekend just reading book 5, which I'll be making a video out soon. I have a lot of videos to do now. I'm really, really behind. But yes, and I still dream about it at night, which that's never happened before. I've never had such vivid dreams about a book series or a book I've been reading. So that's a new one on me. This is definitely, so far, my favourite series ever, and Naomi Novik, definitely my favourite author. I am so, so happy to be just doing this. It's amazing. So that's it for this video. That was Empire of Ivory by Naomi Novik, the 4th book in the Temeraire series. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I really, really strongly recommend this series. It's so, so brilliant. It's just wonderful. It makes me so, so happy, and I hope it will do the same for you. And on that, I will say thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.